In just one day my wife ended our marriage, and now she deeply regrets it. The moment my wife stood on a chair, raised her champagne glass to another man, and called him the most important person in her life, our marriage didn't just end. It was annihilated. Right there. In front of everyone. And here's the real gut punch. She never even saw it coming. My name is Miles Carver. I'm a corporate compliance attorney in Dallas. My job? I read the fine print. I follow paper trails. I make sure nobody burns the whole place down pretending the rules don't apply to them. I'm in my early 40s. Past the age of, maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't play guessing games in my own house. 8 years. That's how long I was married to Alyssa. On paper we had it all. The suburban house, the neat lawn, 2 cars, Christmas photos that made us look happier than we actually were. But me? I'm not the flowers and poetry guy. I show love by showing up. By paying bills on time. By fixing the leaking sink at 11 p.m. By listening when she's exhausted and wants to vent. That's real to me. All I ever wanted was a partner who saw me as, well, her partner. Not scenery. But slowly, quietly I started feeling it. I wasn't her priority anymore. I was just there. To understand how we got to that day, you need to understand Alyssa. She walks into a room and people notice. Quick, charming, always put together. She knows how to make strangers feel like they've known her for years. Great for marketing. Terrible for boundaries. She'd come home from Vaughn Creative talking a mile a minute. Derek loved my pitch. Derek said I saved the account. Derek thinks I'm on track for VP. Derek Vaughn. Her boss. Her mentor. At first I brushed it off. Everyone's got a boss. But then came the late night texts. Not about work. Stuff like, asterisk, big meeting tomorrow. Wear the red dress. My favorite. You're the star. Don't let them forget it. Asterisk, her phone would light up at midnight. She'd smile at that screen in a way she hadn't smiled at me in years. When I raised an eyebrow, she sighed. He just believes in my potential, Miles. This is how the game works. You don't get networking. Maybe I don't get networking. But I understand men. I understand attention. And I understand when respect has quietly left the room. Even our quiet nights stopped feeling like us. I'd be on the sofa, game on mute, beer sweating in my hand. Alyssa would sit at the other end, half turned away from me, fully turned toward her phone. Derek said my presentation carried the whole meeting. Derek told me I have real executive presence. Every sentence started with his name. Every compliment from him landed deeper than anything from me. She'd scroll back through his emails. Reread them. Smile to herself like a teenager with a crush. I'd look at her and feel unnecessary. Like I was just the couch she sat on while she inhaled another man's approval. She was plugged into his validation like it was oxygen. Me? I was background noise she'd long since tuned out. I didn't need to be worshipped. I just wanted to be needed. I was supposed to be her safe place, not her scenery. And once that sank in, I started seeing something she didn't. Patterns. And patterns are my job. One morning, I'm at my desk, skimming a fresh list of companies flagged for review. Routine. Boring even. Until one name knocks the air out of me. Vaughn Creative Media Group. Alyssa's company. Right there. Irregularities. Unusual payment patterns. Escalate for deeper audit. I just stared at the screen. My wife's dream job, her perfect little world, sitting in a folder on my system under potential risk. I've seen this before. Charismatic CEO. Fast-talking culture. Lots of we're a family here energy. Then the numbers don't add up and suddenly everyone swears they had no idea. My license. My career. My reputation. They don't survive me looking the other way because my wife likes the office parties. In that moment, Derek Vaughn stopped being just the man in her stories. He became a name in my case files. My wife's boss wasn't just a problem for my marriage anymore. He was officially a problem for my career. And the next time Alyssa and I sat across from each other over coffee, I knew I was done pretending everything was fine. We met at a nice place in uptown Dallas. Marble counters, busy crowd. Alyssa was scrolling through her phone. Half listening, half texting. Talking about her upcoming birthday like it was the Met Gala. Guest list, caterer, playlist, photo ops. I let her finish. Then I set my cup down and looked her straight in the eye. If you invite Derek to your birthday party, our marriage is over. She blinked. Then laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A full, loud, you can't be serious laugh. Oh my God, Miles, relax. He's just my mentor. I'm not joking, I said. I don't make empty threats. She rolled her eyes. Leaned back in her chair. You're being insecure. It's just networking. You really don't get how this works, do you? That was the moment I drew a line in the sand. And she treated it like a punchline. For me, it was a survival boundary. For her, it was nothing. I walked out of that cafe knowing one thing. If she chose to cross that line, I'd already decided what I was going to do. She crossed it. Of course she did. The week before her birthday, the house turned into a shipping warehouse. Packages every afternoon. Ring lights, custom balloons, gold drink stirrers, branded napkins with her initials. The backyard's going to look insane, she said, excited. Live band, open bar, photo wall. It's going to be amazing content. She didn't call it a birthday. She called it content. I stood in the kitchen watching her unbox decorations like a kid on Christmas. And I realized, I didn't see us anywhere in it. No inside jokes. No favorite food. No quiet details that said, this is our life. Just optics. Her need to look successful was now louder than our need to be connected. This wasn't a birthday party. This was her campaign. And somewhere in all that glitter and planning, I understood. While she was designing her perfect night, I needed to design my exit. While Alyssa planned her perfect night, I went upstairs and shut my home office door. Downstairs was laughter, boxes, tape. Up here? Just me, my laptop, and the quiet truth. I opened our banking app. Joint account busy. My personal account? Not nearly busy enough. I started moving things. New checking and savings at a different bank. Direct deposit changed. Consulting income rerouted. I wasn't hiding money. I was putting a fire break between her choices and my future. Then I pulled out the refinance folder from last year. Her signature was everywhere. Page after page of I trust you. Just tell me where to sign. I read every clause like I was reading it for a stranger. Cleaner than most cases I see. Tighter too. It hit me then, she'd spent years bending rules at work, assuming someone like me would always catch her. I wasn't going to let her do that with my life. I protected my assets the way she should have protected our marriage. And as the music tested the speakers downstairs, I knew exactly how far I was willing to let this party go. By the time the sun went down, our backyard looked like a magazine spread. Warm string lights. A jazz band. The rented bar stocked better than most actual bars in Dallas. Neighbors showed up dressed like they were going to a charity gala. I stood near the bar with a whiskey, watching people pose in front of the flower wall with Alyssa's initials. She floated through the crowd like a politician, touching arms, laughing too loud. Every moment curated. Every angle considered. Nothing about this night was for us. I slipped further back into the shadows. From where I stood, Alyssa was in the spotlight. I was just another extra in the background. And the man she was really performing for hadn't even arrived yet. He showed up at 8:15. Of course he did. Right when the party was peaking. The side gate opened and there he was, Derek Vaughn. Perfect navy suit, no tie, designer gift bag in one hand, sunglasses in the other, even though the sun had set an hour ago. He paused like he was waiting for an invisible spotlight. And then there it was. Alyssa saw him. Her whole face changed. She lit up, shoved past two coworkers, practically floated across the yard. She hugged him. Not the quick, polite hug you give your boss. The kind where bodies linger. Where hands stay on backs a second too long. People noticed. Conversations dipped. Everyone pretended they didn't see what they just saw. I tightened my grip on my glass, watching from the edge of the bar. She lit up for him in a way she hadn't for me in years. And the night wasn't done humiliating me yet. A little later, after enough drinks, someone handed Alyssa a champagne glass and told her to make a toast. She didn't need convincing. She climbed up on a patio chair, dress catching the light, music dropping to a murmur. Phones came out. Everyone turned toward her like she was headlining a show. I just want to thank you all for coming, she started, smiling that polished, practiced smile. But there's one very special person I need to recognize tonight. I knew the name before she said it. My stomach dropped anyway. Derek, she beamed, raising her glass toward him. You believed in me since day one. I wouldn't be where I am without you. Applause. Whistles. People looked at him, at her, at the two of them framed together under my backyard lights. No mention of her husband. No, thank you Miles for supporting me. Nothing. I stood in the shadows. The man who paid for the house, the band, the bar, reduced to background decoration at his own wife's celebration. In that moment you could have heard my dignity call an Uber and leave. I didn't make a scene. I didn't interrupt her big moment. But right then, in that exact second, I knew I was done being the extra in my own life. And I started planning my exit. Here's what I didn't do that night. I didn't smash a glass. I didn't scream her name over the music. I didn't march up and demand she choose between me and him. That's movie stuff. Real life is quieter. I waited until the music got loud again. Until everyone was laughing and shouting for another round. Alyssa was still in the center of it all, arm hooked through Derek's, glowing like the queen of some cheap little kingdom. I walked up to her, just close enough that she could hear me over the noise. I leaned in, kissed her on the cheek and said, "Happy birthday." She barely looked at me. Just flashed a distracted smile, already turning back to her audience. So I turned away from mine. I walked through the living room, past the pile of coats tossed on our bed, past the kitchen full of half-open bottles, out to the garage. The music trailed off behind me as the door closed. No slam. No big scene. I got in my car, started the engine and pulled away from the house I'd paid for. I didn't slam the door. I just left. And this time I wasn't planning on coming back. I drove with no destination until the anger burned out and the tired set in. I ended up at one of those 24/7 diners off I-35. Cracked vinyl seats. Coffee older than the waitress. Felt fitting. I ordered coffee I knew I wouldn't finish and pulled out my phone. Opened the joint credit card account. The charges from that day were right there. Catering, rentals, decor, alcohol. A full celebration of my humiliation built on both our names. I stared at the screen. Then I hit freeze card. The app asked, "Are you sure?" Yes, I was. I tapped confirm. There was a tiny digital sound, a soft click from the speaker that most people wouldn't even notice. To me it was loud. That was the sound of the first door closing. The first real cut. This wasn't drama. This was survival. I wasn't going to let her ego burn down my future along with my respect. And as that card went dead, I started thinking about what else needed to. Sitting in that diner booth, I realized freezing one card wasn't enough. The party was just the symptom. The real problem was deeper. If this turned into a divorce, I knew exactly how ugly it could get. Men in their 40s walking out of court with a suitcase and a payment plan that lasts longer than their careers. I pulled up my payroll portal. Rerouted my salary to the new bank account I'd opened. Same with consulting income. Side work. Everything. At my age, I can't afford to rebuild from scratch because someone else wanted to feel special. I thought about the house. The equity. The retirement accounts. The investments I'd quietly stacked over the years while she stacked followers. I wasn't hoarding. I was securing. I wasn't just leaving a party. I was leaving the version of me that tolerated this, and stepping into the version that protected what he'd built. My marriage might not survive what came next, but my future would. By the time I left the diner, one thing was clear. Money was one layer. The house was another. I sat in my car outside, engine off, and called a 24/7 locksmith. "First thing in the morning," I said. "New locks. Every external door." He quoted a price. I said, "Cash only. No receipts tied to the joint account." Driving home, I thought about that place. I bought the house 2 years before I met Alyssa. Every mortgage payment, every repair, every upgrade, my name, my credit, my overtime. When we got married, I added her to the title. Didn't think twice. When you love someone, you don't imagine needing to protect yourself from them. But love without boundaries turns into leverage. I wasn't kicking her out. I wasn't changing the locks to be cruel or dramatic. I was setting a line I should have drawn a long time ago. Changing the locks wasn't a power move. It was a boundary. This was my home before her. It would still be standing after her choices played out. Back at the hotel, I did what I do best. I went to work. I set my laptop on the small desk, logged into my firm account and opened a new email. Subject line: conflict of interest, urgent, no emotion. No drama. Just the facts. I laid it out clean. My role on the Vaughn Creative Review. My marriage to one of their directors. The potential perception issues. Policy language. Procedure references. All the boring stuff most people skip until it's too late. Then I attached the Instagram photo. The one someone had already posted from our backyard. Alyssa and Derek pressed close under my string lights. His hand on her waist. Her face turned up toward him like he hung the moon. Nothing explicit. Nothing that screamed affair. But anyone with a brain and a basic HR handbook would see the problem. I addressed it to my partner, the head of legal review, and our ethics officer. My cursor hovered over send for maybe 30 seconds. Not because I doubted what I was doing, but because once I clicked it, there was no going back. Then I hit send. The little whoosh from my outbox sounded louder than the party ever did. I didn't start the fire. I just pulled the alarm. I checked into a mid-range hotel off the highway. Brown carpet, heavy curtains, a bed that squeaked when you sat on it. But it was clean, quiet, and most importantly, not my house. The woman at the front desk didn't ask questions. She saw the suit, the overnight bag, the tired eyes, and just slid me the key card. Guys like me check in every night of the week. Up in the room, I didn't bother changing. I just lay back on the bed in my wrinkled shirt and dress shoes, staring at the white ceiling, listening to the air conditioner hum. I waited for guilt to show up. For panic. For that voice saying, turn around, fix it, apologize for overreacting. It never came. What came instead was space. No music. No phone buzzing with her notifications. No performance. Just me, my thoughts, and the quiet realization that I hadn't felt this kind of stillness in months. For the first time in a long time, my chest didn't feel tight. My jaw wasn't clenched. For the first time in months, I could actually breathe. Lying there in that cheap hotel room, one thought kept circling back. Would she even notice I was gone tonight? Or would the party just keep going without me? You'd think walking out of your own house in the middle of your wife's birthday party would trigger something. A text. A call. Where are you? Day 1 passed. Nothing. I stayed at the hotel, went to work, came back, checked my phone. No missed calls. No unread messages from Melissa. Day 2 I stopped checking so often. I already knew the answer. Instead I saw her through a different screen. Instagram stories. Boomerang of her at the office, coffee in hand. Mirror selfie with a caption like, Boss Babe mode on. Song lyrics about independent women playing in the background. 4 days. Not even an, are you alive? It's a strange feeling, realizing your disappearance didn't even cause a glitch in someone's routine. That the person who promised for better or worse, can go almost half a week without noticing you're gone. That's when something in me finally flipped. Whatever switch keeps a man trying just, shut off. I didn't leave my marriage that night at the party. It had left me a long time before that. I was just finally catching up to the truth. On the 5th day, I took a personal day from work. Not because I was falling apart, but because I was done avoiding what came next. I drove back to the house in the afternoon. It was quiet. So, no music. No guests. No staged moments. Just walls that had heard more silence than laughter lately. I poured myself a bourbon, sat on the sofa, and let the burn settle in my chest. On the coffee table, I placed a thick brown envelope. Her name on the front and my handwriting. Alyssa. Sunlight came in through the blinds in thin, sharp lines. Dust floated in the air. The place felt less like a home and more like a waiting room. I wasn't pacing. I wasn't rehearsing a speech. The anger had cooled into something harder. Cleaner. Clarity. This wasn't going to be a fight. It was going to be a readout. Here are the facts. Here are the papers. Here are the consequences. At some point, I heard the sound I'd been waiting on. Heels on the walkway. Then the soft click of the front door opening. I took one last sip of bourbon, set the glass down, and whispered to myself, showtime. She walked in like it was any other Tuesday. Door opened. Keys hit the little bowl. Heels crossed the hardwood like she owned every inch of it. Alyssa tossed her designer bag onto the armchair, shrugged off her blazer, and spotted me on the sofa with a bourbon. Did you miss me? She grinned like I'd just gotten back from a quick trip to the store. I took a slow sip, let it burn. Sure. Like I miss food poisoning. The smile didn't fall all at once. It cracked in pieces. Her eyes narrowed, trying to decide if I was joking. I didn't blink. For the first time in a long time, she actually looked at me. Not past me. Not through me. At me. The air shifted. All the invisible noise in the house, the pretending, the performing, just dropped. Her gaze followed mine to the coffee table. The brown envelope with her name on it sat there like a loaded weapon. What's that? She asked. I didn't answer. I just leaned back and nodded toward it. Her playful energy bled out, replaced by something tighter. Sharper. That was the exact moment her confidence turned into concern. She picked up the envelope, turning it in her hands, but her mind was clearly somewhere else. You're quiet, she said, stalling. Then it hit her. Her eyes flicked to the door. She frowned. When I came in, the lock felt weird, she muttered. She dug her keys from her purse, held them up like evidence. Did you change the locks? Yes, I said. No apology. No explanation wrapped in cotton. Just yes. Her face tightened. Why would you do that? I took another sip of bourbon. You're the one who said boundaries are healthy, remember? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. That's not what I meant, and you know it. I shrugged. This house was my responsibility long before it was your backdrop. Now it's my boundary too. She stared at me like I'd rewritten the laws of gravity. The truth was simple. This place existed before her, and it would exist after her choices finished burning down everything else. You wanted boundaries, I added, voice steady. I just finally took you seriously. For once there were no quick comebacks. No lecture about communication. Just her standing in the doorway of a house that suddenly didn't feel as guaranteed as she thought, and me finally drawing a line she couldn't laugh off. Alyssa finally stopped staring at the locks and focused on the envelope. She sat down slowly, like her legs weren't entirely steady, and slid a finger under the flap. Pages slid out and landed in her lap with a soft thud. Her eyes scanned the first line, then the header, then the date. Color drained from her face. This is a prenup, she said quietly. Updated agreement, I corrected. The one we signed when we refinanced the house. She flipped pages faster now. Sections on property, retirement accounts, business assets, bank accounts. Her breathing picked up. She found the paragraph she was looking for and froze. This says I'm not entitled to anything, she whispered. The house, your retirement, the investments, all protected. That's right, I said calm. That's the document you signed at the kitchen table. You were rushing to get back to some campaign launch. Remember? You told me, just put the sticky notes where you need me to sign. Her hand started to shake. She flipped back to the last page, stared at the signature. Her signature. Over and over. I signed this, she said, voice cracking, without reading. And for the first time that night, she realized I hadn't been the only one taking things for granted. The silence between us got heavy. She kept staring at her name on that last page like it might rearrange itself into someone else's. Then the anger came. Not the honest kind. The scrambling, panicked kind. You tricked me, she snapped. You lied to me, Miles. I shook my head. No, I didn't. You handed me a stack of papers and told me to sign. And you told me, I cut in. I trust you with anything. Just tell me where to sign. Her mouth opened, then shut again. I didn't hide what it was, I said. I told you the refinance package included updated agreements. You didn't ask a single question. You didn't read a single line. You were too busy answering texts from Derek about your big moment the next day. Her eyes filled with tears. You set me up. I protected myself, I said quietly. Because for 8 years I watched you bend rules and expect someone else to catch the fallout. She shook her head, tears spilling now. I can't believe you'd do this to me. I looked at her. Really looked at her. I trusted you not to make me need this prenup. You broke that, not me. And that was the first time she seemed more afraid of the consequences than of losing the spotlight. That night was the strangest kind of quiet. No yelling. No doors slamming. Just two people in the same house on completely different battlefields. Alyssa stayed downstairs on the couch, TV off, eyes swollen, that envelope never leaving her sight. I went upstairs to the master bedroom, the one we used to share, and closed the door. The house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like neutral ground. A place holding its breath. I slept. Not great, but better than I had any right to. In the morning, I could hear her moving around early. By the time I came down, she was in full armor. Hair done, makeup flawless, power suit sharp enough to cut glass. We'll talk later, she said, like we'd argued about dinner plans. I have a lot going on at the office today. I bet you do, I said. I told my firm I'd be working from home. No commute. No distractions. Just a mug of coffee, my laptop, and a front row seat. I sat at the dining table, checked a few emails, and watched the clock. 10:30, 10:40. At 10:47, I took a sip of coffee and said to myself, all right. Let's see who calls first. The house was so quiet you could hear the fridge humming. Alyssa was in the kitchen, slamming keys a little harder than necessary. I was in the next room with my laptop open, waiting. Then her phone rang. The sound cut through the silence like a fire alarm. She glanced at the screen and answered fast. Alyssa Grant speaking. Even from where I sat, I could hear the chaos on the other end. A man's voice. Loud. Frantic. Already at a 10. Derek. I couldn't make out every word, but I caught enough. Lawyers. Investigation. Conflict of interest. Accounts frozen. Alyssa straightened up, color draining from her face. Wait, what are you talking about? She stammered. Who filed what? With which firm? He kept going, voice jagged. Blaming. Scared. She walked slowly into the doorway between us, phone still to her ear, eyes locked on me now instead of the floor. The noise from Derek's side blurred into one long stream of panic. Her voice dropped, thin and shaky. Miles, she said, hand gripping the phone like a lifeline. What did you do? She ended the call with Derek without even saying goodbye. Just hung up and stared at me like I'd pulled the plug on her life support. What did you do? She repeated. I closed my laptop, turned my chair to face her. Come. Level. I did what any ethical attorney would do, I said. I filed a conflict of interest disclosure. She blinked. That email you just heard him scream about. That was me. I walked her through it. Not as her husband. As a lawyer explaining procedure. I informed my firm that I'm married to a director at a company under review. I attached a publicly available photo that shows a, let's call it non-neutral relationship between you and the CEO. Her face twisted. You made it look like I'm sleeping with my boss. I didn't make anything, I replied. I documented what already existed. I told her they'd taken me off the case, reassigned it to attorneys with no personal ties, and once they dug in, I added, they found things. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't gloating. I was reading off facts like minutes from a meeting. I didn't report you, Alyssa, I said quietly. I reported reality. Whether you liked what it showed or not wasn't my problem anymore. It didn't all explode in one day. It was more like watching a building you know is unsafe finally get inspected. Over the next week, I heard the story in pieces. Some from Alyssa, some from people who talk too much after work. First, Vaughn Creative's biggest client paused their contract. Some vague email about re-evaluating partnerships in light of recent developments. That's corporate for, we don't want to be anywhere near this mess. Then another client followed. Then another. Money doesn't like uncertainty. Inside the company, people felt it. Meetings behind closed doors. Whispers in hallways. Slack messages that stopped mid-thread like someone yanked the cord. Alyssa got an email from HR. We need to schedule time to discuss workplace boundaries and professional relationships. She came home furious. They're treating me like I did something wrong, she shouted, throwing her bag onto the counter. Like I'm some kind of liability. I've killed myself for that place. I looked at her for a long moment. Are you sure you didn't? I asked. Because from where I'm standing, the company wasn't the only thing that had been playing fast and loose with lines that should have never been crossed. If the internal fallout at Vaughn Creative was a slow leak, the internet was a grenade. Someone sent Alyssa a link one morning. Anonymous blog. Corporate gossip site. Title, When Birthdays Become Evidence. They'd pulled photos straight from Instagram. The flower wall. The champagne tower. Alyssa on that chair with a mic in her hand. And the shot of her and Derek standing way too close under my backyard lights. They quoted her toast word for word. Asterisk, I wouldn't be where I am without you. Asterisk, then they did what the internet does best. Dissected everything. The optics. The power imbalance. The fact that she was married. The fact that the party was in her husband's home. The article caught fire on LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit. HR people called it a case study in what not to do. Lawyers argued about conflicts of interest. Marketers weighed in on personal brand versus professional boundaries. Alyssa tried to fight it. She actually emailed the blog demanding they take it down, threatening legal action. They didn't just ignore her. They updated the article. New section at the top. Update, she still doesn't understand how the internet works. That was the day she realized this wasn't just a bad night anymore. It was a public lesson. And she was the example. Once the blog hit, the jokes started. They always do. Someone made a meme template with her party photo. Alyssa raising her glass, Derek beside her. Caption, to the most special guest. People edited it onto everything. Company town halls. Office happy hours. Even baby showers. Another genius took the Titanic sinking scene and slapped Alyssa's face on the ship. Asterisk professional reputation on the iceberg. Derek's logo on the ocean. Asterisk but the one that really broke her was from Tyler, her own intern. He posted a gif of Michael Scott from The Office with the words, when your boss's birthday invite turns into an HR investigation. Thousands of likes. Comments full of people who didn't know her, didn't care about context, but definitely enjoyed the spectacle. Alyssa went into full damage control mode. Deleting posts. Locking accounts. Reporting memes. But that's not how it works. The more she tried to erase it, the faster it spread. She stormed around the house, phone in hand, voice shaking. They're destroying my reputation. I looked at her and said, no. You ruined your own reputation with good lighting and bad decisions. And for once, she didn't have a comeback. Just a screen full of strangers laughing at a life she'd curated so carefully. A few days later, I was at the gym. Middle of the afternoon. Treadmill. Headphones in. Doing what guys my age do when we're trying not to fall apart. Just putting one foot in front of the other. My phone started buzzing in the cup holder. Alyssa. I let it ring once. Twice. Then picked up. Yeah. She didn't ease into it. You ruined my life, she screamed. My career is over. Do you get that? It's over. This is all your fault, Miles. Around me weights clanked. Machines hummed. Someone dropped a barbell too hard. My heart rate was already up from the run, but my voice stayed steady. No, Alyssa, I said. You chose cloud over commitment. She went silent for half a beat, then started again about the blog, the memes, the HR meetings, the clients backing out. The internet is ripping me apart, she sobbed. I adjusted the speed on the treadmill, kept my pace. The internet just did what it always does, I said. You gave it material. She choked on a breath. I didn't blow up your life, Alyssa. I just stopped covering for the explosions. For once, she didn't seem sure who the villain actually was. The next call came that night. Her tone had changed. Less panic. More calculated. My lawyer says I can sue you, she said, voice clipped. Emotional distress. Malicious intent. You tanked my reputation on purpose. I was sitting at the kitchen table sorting through mail, the prenup copy still lying nearby. I almost laughed. Please, I said. Take me to court. She wasn't expecting that. You think this is funny? No, I replied. I think discovery will be interesting. I laid it out calmly like I was talking to a client. We'll subpoena Derek's messages. Every late night text. Every, wear the red dress comment. Every email where your mentor blurred the line between boss and something else. I let that sink in. We'll put it all on public record, I added. Depose him. Depose you. Depose half your office if we have to. Then we can all see who's really distressed. She went quiet. The bravado leaked out of her words. You're threatening me, she whispered. No, I said. I'm inviting you. Then I finished it. The day you take me to court, Alyssa, will be the worst PR day of your life. And for the first time she sounded more scared of the truth than of me. The knock didn't sound like a delivery. It sounded like a problem. Doorbell rang twice. Art. I checked the camera on my phone and almost laughed. Derek Vaughn. Eyes bloodshot. Hair a mess. Expensive suit wrinkled like he'd slept in it. He looked less like a visionary leader and more like a man who just watched his stock portfolio catch fire. He started pounding on the door. Where is she? I need to talk to Alyssa. I took my time, finished stirring my coffee, then opened the door just enough to stand in the frame. Good morning, Derek, I said, taking a sip. Coffee? His face twisted. Do you have any idea what you've done? He shouted, voice cracking. Clients are walking. The board is on my neck. Lawyers are tearing through everything. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see a curtain across the street move. Then another. One neighbor stepped onto her porch with her phone angled just enough to pretend she wasn't recording. I lowered my voice, kept my tone even. Careful, I said. This is a nice neighborhood. Sound travels. He didn't get it, but everyone else on the street was about to. Before I could say anything else, I heard footsteps behind me. Alyssa, hair in a messy bun, expensive athleisure on, face washed out, eyes puffy. She froze when she saw Derek on our doorstep. He immediately turned on her. You made him do this, he snapped. You dragged your marriage into my company. Now they found discrepancies. Investors are pulling out. This is on you. She stared at him, stunned. On me? You're the one running the show. I didn't touch your numbers, he fired back. This is your need for attention. The parties, the posts, the speeches. Did you really have to make me the main character at your birthday? In front of your husband? They went back and forth, each one trying to shove the blame across the porch. I just leaned against the doorframe, listening. Two people who'd happily enjoyed the gray area, suddenly horrified to discover there were rules after all. When they finally paused for air, I spoke. Fraud kills companies, I said. Not emails. They both looked at me like I'd stabbed them. I'm not the villain here, I added, calm. I'm just the guy who stopped pretending nothing was wrong. And for a split second, neither of them knew what to say because deep down, they both knew I was right. For a second, nobody said anything. Just three people on a front porch, each standing in the ruins of their own choices. Derek's shoulders sagged first. All the CEO swagger, all that visionary leader energy, gone. Everything I built is gone, he said, more to himself than to us. Not loud. Just empty. He looked at Alyssa one last time. Not with desire. Not with admiration. With disgust. I hope the attention was worth it, he told her. No hug. No, we'll figure this out. No, I'll protect you. He turned, walked down my steps, got into his luxury car and drove off without looking back. Alyssa just folded. She sank down onto the front step, elbows on her knees, hands in her hair, phone still buzzing in her pocket like the world refused to give her a moment to breathe. I stayed where I was, leaning against the doorframe, watching like it was the evening news. This wasn't my crisis to manage anymore. In one afternoon, she lost her mentor, her image, and the shield she thought would always stand between her and consequences. And all I felt was confirmation. On Monday, she tried to pretend there was still something left to save. She put on her sharpest suit, did her makeup like she was going on camera, and drove to Vaughn Creative headquarters. She didn't say much at breakfast. Just, "They need me in the room while this gets sorted." I just nodded. "I'm sure they do," I said. Later, I heard the story in her own broken version. She walked up to the glass doors, swiped her badge like she'd done 1,000 times. Instead of the usual green light and soft click, red. Loud, angry beep. She tried again. Same result. The security guard at the desk, Marcus, a guy she always bragged about being cool with, stood up, reached under the counter and handed her a sealed envelope. Couldn't even look her in the eye. Inside, termination of employment, effective immediately, standard HR language. Company property. Legal references. Non-disparagement. But at the bottom, near the company seal, was a small note, reviewed by Miles Carver, SQ, external counsel. When she came home and shoved the paper in my face, her voice shook. "You fired me?" I looked at the page inside. "No," I said. "The ethics committee did. I just made sure they had everything they needed to do it right." That night, she came back to the house moving slower than usual. No heels. No performance. No phone in her hand. She walked into the bedroom and found me standing over an open suitcase on the bed, folding shirts the way you do when you know you're not coming back. "We can fix this, Miles," she whispered from the doorway. "We can start over. I'll change. I'll do therapy. Whatever you want." I didn't turn around. I zipped one side of the suitcase, set another stack of clothes in. "You already fixed it," I said. "For me." The whole house was so quiet you could hear the zipper travel down the line of the suitcase. All the memories in that room, good ones too, felt far away like they belonged to strangers. My need for peace had finally grown bigger than my nostalgia. I closed the suitcase and finally faced her. She looked smaller than I remembered, like the last week had taken inches off her. "I can live without you," I told her, voice steady. "I can't live without my self-respect." And I meant it more than I'd ever meant anything I'd said to her. I set the suitcase on the floor and reached for another stack of papers on the nightstand. Thinner than the prenup. Heavier than anything we'd ever signed together. "Sit," I said. She sank onto the edge of the bed, hands knotted in her lap. I handed her the bundle. She flipped the first page and read the heading aloud, like saying it might change it. "Petition for divorce." Her eyes shot up to mine. "You're serious?" "I was serious when I warned you about Derek," I said. "I was serious when I told you that party would cost you our marriage. You laughed then." I sat beside her, but not close. "This isn't revenge, Alyssa," I continued. "These are consequences." I reminded her of the coffee shop. Of the line I drew that she stepped over without hesitation. Of the toast. The texts. The way she made me an extra in my own life. "I'm not trying to win against you," I said. "I'm trying to get out of a game that was never played fair." She stared down at the papers, tears blurring the ink. "You didn't just lose a husband," I added quietly. "You lost the only person who ever tried to warn you." And this time, there was nothing left for her to say. A few days after the divorce papers hit her hands, the doorbell rang again. Not Derek. Not neighbors. A courier. Plain uniform. Neutral face. Tablet in hand. "Delivery for Alyssa Grant," he said. She signed without reading, the way she always did, and shut the door. I was in the kitchen pouring coffee when I heard the envelope tear open. At first she skimmed it, eyes moving too fast to really see. Then something caught and she started over slower this time. It was a demand letter from Vaughn Creative's legal team, or what was left of it. They were clawing back her performance bonuses. $130,000. Reason: those bonuses were tied to earnings that turned out to be cooked. Fraud. Inflated numbers. Improper reporting. The money, they said, was never truly earned. It needed to come back immediately. No job. No salary. No golden image left to leverage. Her knees buckled. The letter slipped from her hands and landed on the floor between us. "Some people destroy you with rage and violence. I don't need to. I prefer invoices and silence." And for the first time she finally understood the price tag on her choices. I packed everything I needed into one suitcase and a carry-on. Not my life. Just the parts worth taking. Alyssa was still on the floor when I walked back through the hallway, legs folded under her, hands limp at her sides, that demand letter staring up from the hardwood like it was judging both of us. I didn't step around her dramatically. I didn't stop to deliver one last speech. I just walked past. Suitcase rolling behind me, keys in my hand. No yelling. No name calling. No "you'll regret this," or "you never deserved me." The only sounds were my footsteps on the floor and the soft click of the suitcase handle when I adjusted my grip. I opened the front door and stepped onto the porch. Dallas sun hit my face. Bright. Unforgiving. But somehow lighter than the air inside that house. Losing her isn't my rock bottom, I thought. Staying would have been. I locked the door from the outside, slid the key off my ring and set it on the little table by the entryway window. Some doors don't slam. They just close quietly and stay locked. I walked to my car, started the engine, and left behind a life that had been burning out long before that one day finished it off. Let me be clear about something. This story isn't about cheating bodies. It's about cheating priorities. My marriage didn't end because of one kiss caught on camera. It ended because over time, 3 things every man needs got quietly smashed. Safety. I couldn't trust my future, my home, or my finances around her choices. Respect. I went from partner to prop while she performed for other people. Being a priority. I wasn't first. I wasn't second. I was convenient. Don't wait until your dignity has to call an Uber and leave. Sometimes protecting yourself isn't about screaming louder, smashing plates, or begging someone to see your worth. Sometimes it's as simple, and as hard, as signing your name, closing the door, and walking away. You can rebuild money. You can rebuild a career. But a man who loses his self-respect loses everything. Now, I want to hear from you. If you were in my shoes, whose side would you be on? Mine or hers? Drop it in the comments. Be honest. And if you know a man who needs to hear this, share this story with him. Don't let yourself become background in your own life.